Hello, folks, and welcome to Paranormal Round Table. That's PRT for short. That's what everybody calls it, and I call my people the paratroopers. I didn't make up that name. Somebody else did. I can't take credit for its coolness. But I have my guest back this week from last week, and we're just going to pick up where we left off. But first, I got to tell you, Josh Turner at prtpodcast.com, Josh Turner at prtpodcast.com. That's the email address you can reach me at. And if you want to reach me on Facebook, you can just send me a friend request so that I know that you are an actual living, breathing listener of the show. And I'm on Instagram under Josh Turner 940, Instagram Josh Turner 940. So you can hit me up on those platforms. And I do run several groups on Facebook, and I will give you the information on those. Mine, the main group, obviously, is Paranormal Round Table, and I am the creator of Paranormal Round Table, and the group is based on my show. And I believe we have like 7,000, about 7,800 members. But yeah, so that group is growing fast. I'm also the admin for Dogman Werewolf Discussion, which is Della Carter and Bill Stern. Paranormal Lounge, which is my wife Nellie's. Wolf Turner PRT fan page was created by Phil Stern also. And then Quad Coalition of Sciences, which is Nick Valente, and North American Dogman Project Region 2, which is D.A. Roberts. Paranormal Roundtable Prayer Group, which is Nellie's, and Paranormal Encounters, which is Mushu, my co-host, and Whisper to a Scream, which is Ryan, and then Paranormal Trucker Podcast, which is John King. I am an admin in all those groups. I was an admin in other groups, but I could not keep up with it all. But yeah, I'm an admin in those groups, and I'm in a bunch of other groups. So occasionally, if you're on my friends list, you might get invited to these groups that I am a part of. And I know the admins in most of those groups, all these groups that I'm in, and I'm usually pretty good friends with them. That being said, I know that a lot of people don't do Facebook. I understand that, okay? But if you want to communicate with me, Facebook Messenger is one of the quickest and easiest ways to do it. But my email and Messenger do fill up. So if I try to get to everybody eventually at some point, try to get through. If I can't get through to you, don't take it personal. I just do the best that I can. And I'm trying to get to everybody's stories as quickly as I can. Now, this is the Friday podcast. Those of you who are here right now are probably well aware of that. But I do a Tuesday live stream, which is a YouTube exclusive. It comes out every Tuesday. If you miss it live, which I'd like you to show up so you can be a part of the live chat and interact. But if you miss it live, then you can always go back in the archives on YouTube and you can listen to it. The archives are there. There's like 70 of them on there, live streams, and they're anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. My podcast is an hour long. And it is on, I think, 13 different platforms. But like I said, the live stream is a YouTube exclusive. You have to go to YouTube to listen to it or participate. And if you miss it, like I said, you can catch it, the replay of it. You can go and replay it anytime. You're missing out on a lot of content, though, if you're not watching it and you're not paying attention to it, because there's a lot that's done and said on there that you don't get on the podcast. But the podcast is convenient because it is on other platforms, and if you don't want to watch it on YouTube or listen to it on YouTube, that's fine. You can listen to it on whatever channel, whatever medium that you want to use. I know a lot of people that listen to my show listen to it on Spotify, and I hear that a lot. But like I said, come check us out on the live stream. We'd love to have you. Also, we have a conference coming up August 13th. If you're a VIP, you get in August 12th, and you get to have the dinner with me and all of the guests that are going to be there. We got Ken Gerhardt, Nick Redfern, Barton Nunley. There's a huge list of people. Ron Murphy, Steve Stockton, Josh Tonnocchio, Tony Merkel. It's just a huge list of people that are going to be there. I can't even name everybody. D.A. Roberts, Nick Valente, Jody Cook, Bettina Moss, Vault. Just there's a huge number of speakers. I put together a huge cast of people. David Weatherly. So if you are into cryptids or if you're into Dogman, come check it out. Go to Eventbrite and look up Paranormal Roundtable Presents Dogman Conference, Dogman/Cryptid Conference, and there are going to be a couple Bigfoot speakers there. And there are going to be people talking about cryptids just in general. There's going to be a ton of people there. Kenny Irish, Ron Murphy, Elijah Henderson, just a bunch of people. And we're all going to talk, and we're going to talk about Dogman and cryptids and Bigfoot. So please show up, purchase your tickets at Eventbrite. You won't be disappointed. And I'm hoping that my current guest that I'm talking to right now, I hope that you're able to go to the conference. Are you going to be there, Ann?
That is my intention. I can't wait.
Yeah, me neither. I'm excited for it, but I'm also excited to not have to deal with it, getting it set up, because that has been a big part of my existence right now, trying to get it done, along with trying to put out 2 shows a week and run a business. It's tiring, but I'm definitely stoked. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope everybody comes out and has a good time and everybody enjoys themselves. One of the things that we did too, just so everybody knows, we did do a live stream interview together, which if you tuned in last week, you know it didn't go the way either one of us thought it would. I don't think it was a disaster. I think it was great, but we didn't really get to the meat and potatoes of what we were supposed to talk about. And so me and Ann agreed to do the podcast, which reaches a wider audience too. And, you can tell your experiences. So you wrote a book. We'll get everybody up to speed now. Do you want to tell us about the name of it and all that?
Yeah. So it's The Diaries of Lady Ann, Aperture in the Veil, Born in a Preternatural World. And, something that I didn't mention on the last podcast that I'll mention on this one is that there was a lot of thought that I put into the cover. So there's a lot of symbolism. Even if you, in the corners, and you'll see this when you get your copy, there's these little circles up in the corner, and they're moon symbols, and they're actually the phase of the moon on the night that I was born. And so, yeah, I wanted to put a lot of my energy and everything into the book. Well, Aperture, I chose the word aperture instead of opening because, it not only does it sound more eloquent, I think, but it also kind of pays homage to my mom and dad, because they were both people that were really into photography. And again, I feel that when we are born or when we reincarnate, we pass through the veil. It goes over us, and we are born into the great forgetting. But what would happen if there was an opening, an aperture in the veil, where we were able to retain our memories? Because I do have, like I had said on the last one, with my very first memory, I remember sitting in front of this beautiful picture window and looking out in awe and just thinking, wow, I came back. And from there, I have other past life memories that they came to me in dreams, reoccurring dreams, and different times throughout my life. One of those was I was a soldier, and I'm not sure, I don't know what war it was. I just remember that I walked into this room. I was clearing the room for some reason. I was trying to search for somebody. And another soldier came in, and he shot me in the back. Well, I fall down, and there's this table in the center of the room. And I think to myself, okay, if I'm just going to crawl to this table, and I'm going to lie here, and I'm going to close my eyes, and I'm going to pretend that I died, to try to, wait until the opposing people are gone. But I died. I didn't make it. And so then with the other, Born in a Preternatural World, having so many experiences, I feel that preternatural best fit the book, because everything that we experience, ghosts, shadow entities, Sasquatch, you name it, I believe that it's all a very real part of our world.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think that, this, you talked last week about your Sasquatch encounter. You were in the middle of talking about your incredible UFO alien, whatever, UFO/alien encounter. Before when you go any further with that, I wanted to say something. What you just said you touched on your past lives that it came to you in recurring dreams. That's exactly what happened to me. That is crazy because
Wow.
I mean, like, it started when I was like 25, and then it happened again when I was 30, then again when I was 35, like in these 5-year periods.
Oh, wow.
And it just kept going until I was about 40. And it was just like bits and pieces of stuff that just kept coming and coming and coming. And then, yes, and I was also in one of my past lives a soldier, but more than once.
Oh, wow.
And I just, my past lives like came to me over and over again. And that's so weird. That's what happened to me. And I really started to feel like I was picking up pieces of the puzzle and trying to put it together. When I was little, I used to tell my parents and my grandparents, but my grandparents, it kind of just really, they really thought it odd because some of the things I would talk about, they knew that there was no way I could know those things. I mean, I would talk about things from their generation that there was no way that I could know. I started talking when I was like 10, 11 months. I was really young, and I was speaking of complete sentences, no baby talk. My earliest memories, I wasn't even 1 year old, which most people don't have memories going that far back. I know I remember being 1.5 and falling off a horse named Chance. But I remember talking with my grandparents and my parents and telling them when I grow big, then they're going to grow little again one day, and then I'm going to grow little again, then grow big again, and they would be like, what is this kid talking about? And
Incredible.
so that's something that I've had with me for a long time, is those thoughts and memories. And when I first even mentioned having any sort of belief in the return, because I was taught in the Christian Science school that I went to, that it is for a man to live and die but once. That's in the New Testament. You go look it up, and I understand that passage, okay? But the way I understand it is that me, Josh Turner, will live but once and then die, and there won't be another Josh Turner that lives in this plane of existence. Ann Selene will live and die, one time, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you come back, you could be Omar Bubblish Fisheye. You know what I mean? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, you could be pretty much anybody. You could come back and be like, Joe Mo Fontaine, and that's Joe Mo Fontaine will live and die but once, and that's it. But your spirit, your soul goes on, and I believe that eventually, though, you will end up in one of two places, varying degrees of which are levels. And if you're really bad, then I think that's what you do. And we talked a little bit on the live stream about what I think about evil people and what happens to them.
Right.
Not all people that are evil, because you can be evil and then switch polarities and change it up. Now, really bad people, though, I think that, like serial killers and people that are sadistic and just they are born without empathy, I think they're born beyond redemption. Because if you were born without the ability to feel for people, that puts you behind the 8 ball. That's not a mistake. Okay. I think that you're just born that way for a reason. And I think you're born with beyond redemption, because you could never pray to a higher power. Okay. God, or whoever, whatever you perceive God to be. In my case, it's the Father of Christ, but some people don't view it that way. But whatever people believe God is, they will never go to that higher power with true remorse in their heart and be forgiven, because they can't. So I made the argument to many Christians and Muslims that there are people that are born beyond redemption. They're like, no, they're not. No, they're not. God, or if they're Christian, Christ can redeem them, or they'll say Allah can redeem them. I said, if they were to go and ask for that redemption, okay, that's the case. That's the key. With a pure heart, but they're incapable of that. So that puts them beyond redemption. And I think those people are dark entities. They come back to do and be a part of and fulfill dark. That's what they do. You know what I mean? That's their job. They just come back as an NPC with no feeling, no whatever, and they kill and they do things. They have no remorse. They're very robotic. Now, if they were meant to find redemption in this life, they would not be born with that block where they have no empathy. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's pretty, to me, it's pretty simple.
It makes sense.
Yeah. But, like I said, a lot of times we try to look at things with our human brains and things don't make sense. But there are some things that you can naturally just kind of understand. If you connect to the universe and just kind of understand the flow, you'll get it. You know what I mean? But some people just cannot ever. And so that brings me to this point I'm going to make here. Like, I do believe that some demonic entities do masquerade. Like we talked about that on the last show, that there are entities that masquerade as other things. Like you had a Bigfoot encounter and very much was connected to a spirit box encounter where you guys talked to what was claiming to be a Sasquatch. Now, not only do these demonic entities do things like that, like pretend and play and whatever, they also can do things like pretend to be extraterrestrial. But I also think that it gets really convoluted because I think there are interdimensional, ultra-terrestrial, whatever you want to call them. People call them, different types of terrestrial, whatever, that they're not from this plane of existence, or they're not interdimensional terrestrials or extraterrestrials or whatever. They exist too. Okay. And then this is what I really believe. I think sometimes shapeshifters, they can muddy the waters by pretending to be something that they're not, because I know I had an experience in my show, The Haunted Tower I did. If you go back in the archives, listen to that. I came across an entity which was very much demonic, and it was playing on my fear of the dogman I saw when I was 15, or werewolf, whatever you want to call it. And it was pretending to be that entity. And I figured it out pretty quick, but it was very terrifying, which dumped a lot of fear and adrenaline, and so I think these parasitic entities feed on that. And I think that's what it was doing. It was playing up to my fear. Now, what you saw, you kind of laid it out there, and then you said when you were pressed, you said, well, if I had to make a choice of what I believe it was, I believe I saw a Sasquatch, and then there was an entity that was interfering, pretending to be said Sasquatch. But your encounter with the Sasquatch invoked so much fear. Really quickly, before we go into go back to what was going on with your abduction, your possible abduction scenario, tell me about the Bigfoot, the fear that you had. Like where did it come from? Like specifically?
I really thought I was going to die. That's, because here's this ultimate predator. It's bigger than me. It can run faster than me. Its strength is insane. Like, I really felt like I had no chance. And to have it growl at me and to feel it. I mean, it was such I forget what that's called. Ultra.
Infrasound?
What is that? Infrasound, yes. And it makes you feel physically sick. And I haven't ever really felt anything like that before. So there's these new physical sensations. You're well, like I said, I don't have fight or flight. I have freeze. So freeze was enabled. And and you just feel like, I mean, I was convinced as I stood out in the field, because you hear these stories about how if you see one, it's probably not one, there's probably more, and you could be surrounded, kind of a thing. And I was just like, they could come out from anywhere. We would literally stand no chance.
And you said how tall was it?
It had to have been 9 foot.
Man, massive. Like how wide?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, wider than me.
4 to 5 feet, maybe 3 feet. Like, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, it was so hard because what I remember the most is the head to the shoulder, and anything lower, I don't have that vivid, because it was seeing the head, seeing a actual head and shoulder, and it was, because it was halfway behind a tree. So, I mean, even just thinking about it, it still, it gets to me. I can talk about it, but really trying to envision myself back there and trying to physically see it in my head, it does bring back some of that.
The fear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've already talked about it, but just going over, like, because the spirit box thing happened subsequently, it makes me think that maybe it was invoking a fear. And that's one thing I went back and I kind of thought about, and I thought, well, that does happen. Like, okay, I got a funny story. Well, it's funny if it didn't happen to you, but but you know what I mean? Like, it's not funny.
Yeah.
I mean, this happened in New Mexico, but a listener of the show, her grandmother told her a story. And this didn't happen like no long time ago, but she was washing dishes a few years ago, and she had some clothes that she hung out to dry. It was middle of summer, and it wasn't an overly large, like very powerfully built like Bigfoot, but it was definitely a Sasquatch. The description, everything matched, and it came right up to the deck of her house.
Oh.
And they lived in a double wide trailer, so it would have been nothing for this creature to come through the walls. She said it was only about 7 feet, which I say only 7 feet, still, it was a massive creature. Later on, her husband saw it. And of course, they thought that, this thing is not, it looked young in the face. It looked like a younger creature. And they thought that they had seen a much bigger, one or two of them bigger, when they were out hunting deer, or one year, I guess they went deer hunting, the guy and his wife's brother, which would have been this woman's great uncle or whatever. But her grandmother was washing dishes, and she nearly had a heart attack from the fear. She said she was just scared.
Oh, yeah.
And it walked right up to and get this is what's crazy. It walked in between the clothes, kind of examining them, and she was just sitting there stunned. Then it walked right up to the deck. She said she was frozen. Like, you say, how you get frozen?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
She said, like, I had my phone like maybe 6-8 feet away from me. She didn't even bother to try to grab it. She just sat there staring at it. It was a ruddy color, like a reddish brown, and it came up onto the deck, and it grabbed a couple of items, sniffed them, and then walked off with them. One of them was a dog's chew toy, and the other one was a crock.
Wow.
Like a shoe.
Right. Right.
And it's funny because it's like synchronicities and being what they are, whatever. I actually went to the Croc store today because my wife likes those little gibbets, whatever. We had to go in there. And I was just thinking about that. Like, it's just like, I was just thinking about that encounter. Like, it stole a crock, like a turquoise colored crock or whatever. And it was like squeezing it. And like it's like the feel of these objects. So it took them.
Right.
And her dog, she said, that usually barks at everything and is right there by her feet. It's nowhere to be found. And it's hiding under the bed in one of the back bedrooms. And she said that it was terrified, that it had urinated all over the floor. Now, think about this. If this entity, she said it looked evil. She said it just had an evil face, like this awful, ugly face. Now, if this thing is just a normal, natural creature, and it comes up onto your deck, which I guess, if a lion came out of nowhere, it's such an aberration, you'd be like, what is that? And then it walks up onto the deck.
Mm-hmm.
Now, folks, let me explain. The last time I said something, somebody actually, believe it or not, people can be really not, they don't, so I don't want to be insulting, but people can be very, very snarky. Aberration is not the same as apparition. Okay, I want to explain that. Now, what I mean, everybody that knows anything about ghosts or anything like that, they know what an apparition is. But an aberration, in the way that I'm using the word, okay, is literally like something that's not normal. It's not expected. It's something that's not, it's out of the realm of normality. Okay, aberration. That's the word. Okay, so anyway, this thing. So if a lion came out of this, came out of nowhere, come onto the property, walked up on the deck, she'd probably be terrified, because it's an aberration. It's not expected and it's unwelcome. But I doubt she's going to be freezing to where she feels like she's going to have a heart attack and then she feels no blood in her arms and she can't move her legs to go grab her phone and she's just sitting there terrified. And
That's
then
true.
the dog, which she said usually just barked at everything. If there's coyotes out in the field, it's barking at them. The dog runs under the bed and hides and stays put. He's terrified. He's not going to come out. So when you look at that situation, that would like, it would appear that this creature is evil. I mean, it's like, I'm not saying that Bigfoot is evil, I don't know. It just seems like it shows that there's something not of this world. It's otherworldly. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does. But also I think that, take a silverback gorilla and make it 10 foot tall. That would look pretty terrifying. But silverbacks are just regular animals.
Yeah, and I would hazard to guess that if a silverback gorilla came up to the porch, the dog would probably have been barking.
That's true.
And it would have acted like she normally does. The dog was a female, I think, collie that barked at everything.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's true.
So yeah, and that's why I was like, this would, to me, I don't know, it would just seem like nothing, like that wouldn't happen for a regular animal. Does it make sense?
Right. No, it does. It does. No, that's for sure.
Do you feel like what you saw was a regular? I mean, I know Bigfoot's not a regular animal, but do you feel like it was just like a regular, just an ape running around? Yeah, okay. I didn't think so.
No. Yeah, it definitely has that otherworldly feeling.
Yeah, it connotates like something out of the realm of, a normal flesh and blood creature, because the dog she's hiding under the bed. I mean, granted, their dog is like one of those little collies, a little collie dog, like a lassie dog. I mean, but she said that she barks at everything. She's like, she literally will bark at anything. And then there she is hiding, because dogs, they just bark. They think something's not correct. They tell their owner, "Hey, man, there's trouble. Hey."
Right.
And so that's what they're doing. But it just, to me, the way the dog behaved and the way that she froze, and she just felt like, she said even after it walked off into the bushes, it was just, she couldn't stop but feeling like it was just something that was evil. Although she did say it looked like a young creature. Now I'm going to say this, people say, oh, well, they have families. They can be a male, a female. They can have a child, whatever. They can have juveniles and this and that, but they still feel this terrifying fear from these creatures, because, and not just because they look weird or something. I think it goes back to them literally being they could be, not all of them, but some of them that invoke this fear in people that's just off the freaking Richter scale. Could be because they are of a Nephilim origin. They could be the descendants of an angelic and human, DNA creation, and it could be something that's unholy. It's not correct. Now, there could just be these really big, large creatures, especially in the Northwest. I think that there could be a population of actual living hominid or / hominin like creatures living in the Northwest. People run into them, and they're just naturally occurring. That could exist too, but more often than not, you get reports people are just terrified of this thing that looks horrific, and it does. And a lot of times they do bad things. They do evil things. So, sometimes they just look at you and they walk away, and that's probably the one that looks like an ape and is, the one that some of our friends believe in. And then there's the one that some people get, that what you're talking about, it invoked an unnatural fear.
Right. See, and that was the other thing too. There was this knowing, if you will, this feeling that that there was quite the intelligence to it. which, of course makes it even more terrifying.
And you've had these other experiences, like you talk about the shadow entities.
Yes.
Yeah. And what was the fear like with that as opposed to seeing the Bigfoot?
Yeah, see, with the shadow entities, especially with the cloaked, hooded figures, it was like, number one, it was strange that you couldn't see a face, that it was just darkness. And that was really scary. And then you felt like they were watching you.
Mm-hmm.
But what were they waiting for? Why were they standing there? And it was all those unknown factors that of course would raise my fear levels. And you knew that they were intelligent. There again. But here they're intelligent and you can feel that. And so it just gives you more questions. Like I said, why are you here? Why are you staring at me? What are your intentions? But I never found out. They never really, it's been a long time since I've seen one.
And that's a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because you don't want to see
gosh.
these things. And a lot of times these shadow entities will be in the same investigation with UFOs, Bigfoot, Dogman, and whatever the heck else is going on. I've been in a house, me and some of my guys that work together on this show. We walked into a house and a blender came on. Well, technically it was a ninja, but yeah, it was one of those ninjas, and it came on. It was like, and I was like, wow, that's nuts. And the guy's like, yeah, I don't know what the big deal is. Yeah, I saw some shadow the other day in the bathroom come out of the wall, and well, the wife's all scared. And I'm like, and you're not? So that makes you either the bravest man or the stupidest man. I would go with the latter. I'm pretty sure that that's what's going on. Like eventually he had to come to terms with it when this entity kicked his front door in, physically kicked it in. Yeah. And his son was seeing like a werewolf looking creature. The mom who she went to school a town over from me, and I knew somebody who knew her, and they knew her very well. She was a few years younger than me, and so they got me in touch with this person, but her husband was just not a believer until it was just too late. And then I found out like 2 weeks ago from his cousin that he actually was out hunting right around Thanksgiving last year, and they had a Bigfoot incident. Completely separate, completely different from what this thing was, from this werewolf creature that was going around his property. And when he asked me what I thought was going on, I told him, I said, you have some things going on in this house. You have shadow people that the children and the mom are seeing, your wife, that you've seen too, but you seem to not think it's a big deal. But I told them that it is a big deal. You need to not be here. And, he was renting. I'm like, what's the big deal? Just leave, and I told him that was the best way to deal with it. And then he's like, well, what is this werewolf looking creature, whatever? And I said, it's all part of the package, bro. I believe that it's all connected. People love to compartmentalize and go, oh, well, that's not, this is a UFO case, blah, blah, blah. But then outstep some weird looking reptilian lizard man and a werewolf.
Exactly.
So how are you going to tell me where did they come from, dude? Did I walk onto the set of a George Lucas movie? I mean, because I'm trying to figure this out. Like this one guy, he had an incident with UFO activity. And sadly, his daughter, or I guess his wife and his stepdaughter, and a niece that was staying there for the summer all had an abduction. And he was just not sympathetic to it at all. He did not want to hear about it. And it was like one of the most horrific things, and these people are telling you, and then he goes, you don't have permission to use this story. Well, then she messages me and says, you absolutely do have permission to use the story, but he's just over here telling me, well, I don't give you permission, you can't talk about me. And I'm like, well, I can call you, whatever I want to call you on there. But, yeah, so you had something similar to happen to you. Now, we left off last week talking about, you being on a slab, like put it on a table, right?
Right.
So let's start from the
Yeah.
beginning of that one. Let's go. Tell me what was going on with that.
Well, just to go back a bit, I was married at the time, and it was one of those nights where him and I had an argument, so he left the house, and he went to drive, up this, there's kind of like this mountain that looks over all the surrounding towns, and there's this park up there. Well, he had driven up there, and there was this really bright light, but it was silent. Like, there was no helicopter, there was no, road crews with the lights or anything like that. This was like a light in the sky that was blinding, and it scared him, and he called me on the phone as he's driving back down the mountain coming home. Well, later on that night, he gets home, he calms down, and we go to bed, but he wakes up in the middle of the night with this kind of a start, and he has labored breathing. Well, he looks over at me, and I apparently have the same type of labored breathing that he's experiencing. And he kind of sits there and he, tries to concentrate on his breathing, and it slowly gets better. And he looks over at me, and he sees that I am doing better. And finally, once we're both breathing normal again, he just goes back to bed. Well, that next morning, I had woke up from what I thought was a dream. And in this dream, I was laying on this, it'd be like a table, but like a hospital bed type of a thing. And I remember here I am, I'm laying on it. And on my left, there's somebody else on another one. But I don't see her face. I know it's a female, but she's not saying anything. And then there's these doors. And there's these people that come through the doors. And they have, like, the one that ends up coming over to me, she had red hair and blue eyes, but like ice blue eyes. She was beautiful. And she comes up to me and she takes my right arm, or my left, and she telepathically tells me not to be worried, that everything's going to be okay. And she proceeds to inject me with this syringe that has this like metallic, it's like a solid metallic looking whatever. And she injects that into me. And then they do something similar with the girl next to me and they leave. Well, now that I know that they speak telepathically, I'm like, okay, I need to clear my mind. They can't know my next move. Like, I can't think about what I want to do. So I tell the lady next to me, I'm like, come on. And it was like she just wasn't, she wasn't with it. She wasn't there. So I was like, all right. And I get up and I try to make it to these double doors that are in front of me. So there's two sets of doors, one in front of me and one off to the left. Well, I make it through these doors, and now I'm in this room that's like, it's white. It is a sterile white room. And I'm standing there, and it's as if somebody just turned this power switch off on me, and I collapsed to the floor. And then the next thing I know, I'm waking up in my bed. Well, my arm hurts, and I look down right where the lady had injected me in this dream, and I do have an injection mark, and it's sore. It's like I went and got a shot. And it was so so perplexing. And later on, I did speak to a hypnotherapist, and he said if it was psychoschematic, it would have. I mean, because the mind is super powerful. You can have a dream about being attacked by ants and wake up in a rash. However, if psychoschematic stuff will go away pretty soon, it's not going to last for days like this injection did for me. But where it gets weirder is here I was pregnant, and I ended up later on having preterm labor. And this was with my first pregnancy. Well, we go in and I go to the hospital, and it was really strange because there's this man, and I don't ever remember seeing him, and he seemed off, like he was nervous or something. And he came in to take blood samples. Well, he leaves his cart in the hallway, okay, number one. And he comes in and he's trying to take my blood, but he doesn't have the right vials. So he sends my ex out. Oh, I got the wrong ones. I need you to get this. Okay. That is against so many rules. Like, you don't leave your cart, number one. Number two, nobody touches that but you. So, alarm bells right there. But of course, it's just chaos. So I don't really know what's going on. And finally he gets things figured out. He gets the samples, he leaves. Well, then later on, they come in and it was really weird. They injected me with this, what was the name of it? It's not thimerosal because that's mercury, an ingredient in injections. I'm not going to be able to remember it. But I remember that I had found out later on that this particular drug was used. I found it when I was doing MK Ultra research for my podcast and stuff, and I was like, whoa. This was under MK Search when they were using different medications to try and, do the truth serums and the hallucinations on the people that they had in their program. Well, I also found out that, number one, you're never supposed to inject that. And number two, you're never supposed to use that on pregnant people. And let me tell you, the reaction that I had, I've never felt anything like that in my life. And it was just like you were temporarily insane. It was like, you're laughing, you're crying, you can't stop moving, you don't, it was just so strange. And then eventually, everything kind of calms down. I don't remember a whole lot else, but I know that I got to go home. And a couple weeks passed. I'm not dealing with a preterm labor anymore. And then they scheduled me to come in and they induced me. Birth was fine. 10 hours, only a couple minutes of pushing. Healthy baby. I'm healthy. Everything's good. Well, later on that night, a woman comes into the room. And I remember waking up out of sleep. And she cuts off every single one of my armbands. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she goes, oh, you don't need these anymore. You don't need these. And I remember something telling me, read her name tag. And so I read her name tag. I don't remember what her name was now, but I remember that I had read her name tag. That was important. And she cuts off all my armbands, and then she takes my baby and she wheels the baby out of the room. And I'm out. I'm just passed back out. So I wake up and it's morning. My baby's there next to me. But then the nurse is looking at me and she goes, where are your armbands? Why did you take those off? These are not supposed to be removed. And I'm like, nurse so-and-so last night did it. I didn't do it, cause I'm just like freaked out. Like, don't be mad at me. I didn't do this. Well, she goes, nurse who? And I repeated the name, and she said there was absolutely no one on the floor last night with that name. And she storms off.
So what do you think it was?
Well, she did end up coming back, and she wouldn't make eye contact with me at all. And as I have gotten into this field with UFOs and ETs and all of this kind of stuff, there has been talk about like military. I haven't gotten into it too much yet. Because I've been nervous because I've had so much activity that's happened, even from saying, okay, I'm gonna start researching this, and then all of a sudden all my electronics don't work, and then I get 2 hours of missing time. And this is also the inspiration for my second book, using the word paramorphosis, taking paranormal and metamorphosis and putting it together. And it's when an individual, now I'm not saying that everything, this is not a blanket statement, this is when an individual slowly they see that their paranormal experiences are taking on this transformation, that they might have been more extraterrestrial in nature and not actually just a ghost. Because there was one story in my first book that I left out. And that is the story that starts my second book. And I've actually went to get hypnotic regression in regards to that experience that I had. And it's really made me wonder if some of these experiences that I had, like with the shadow people, were those screen memories? Was it actually a shadow entity, or was it an implanted memory from an extraterrestrial with a different abduction or encounter?
So, in your opinion, you are an abductee.
I have a really hard time with that. Okay, the picture that I sent you,
Mm-hmm.
I call it an alien or interdimensional being. It's really hard for me to even say the word alien.
Well, we don't have to call it an alien. We can call it anything. But
well,
do you
right,
feel like
but
you're
what I'm
abducted,
saying is,
though?
it's really hard. I'm tripped up right now. That would be the definition. Do I want to actually say those words? I haven't said those words.
Yeah, you've never said you were an abductee, but I mean...
No. But that would be what it would be. I just don't, I guess. When I say it, it makes it more real, and it's
unnerving. Yeah, but let's put it this way: your paramorphosis. What
yes.
would you call it? An analysis, sort of. Would that be an appropriate term?
Yeah.
An analysis of people's experiences, and you're calling it paramorphosis. Okay. So, in your opinion, whatever these entities are, whatever they're doing, did they abduct you and make you lose time? That's the key.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And multiple times, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. And I tell anybody who's listening right now, go back and listen to the Jason Bland episodes. I think it's called Stalked by Shadows or something like that. I think that's the name that Anthony gave it. That's, but it was Jason Bland, the host of Paranormal Soup. I would suggest you go, you talk to him too. And because he had shadow encounters, and he had what he thinks kind of bled into like alien abduction. But this one shadow entity, I believe, like it kind of looked like a wolf-looking thing, and it was weird. It gets really weird. If you haven't listened to those three, I think there's three of them. I think 3 episodes. You got to go back yourself and listen to them. And everybody who's listening to the show right now, go back and listen to those episodes. It was with Jason Bland. He's a very good guy. He's the host of Paranormal Soup. He's one of the most underrated podcasters out there. He's very good at what he does, and he's had a lot of amazing guests on. He's had Paul Wallace. He's had L.A. Marzulli. He's just had a lot of great guests. I've called in a few times and talked on the show, and he's a good guy. I did his show, and then he did my show, and so yeah, he's a good dude. But that right there just sounds so. And I know that I have talked to many people who have claimed that they have had abduction. But they don't really say alien abduction. They just said that they have missing time. They feel like they were abducted. Most recently was just like about 2 weeks ago. I had somebody tell me, because I've gotten a rash of UFO reports from San Antonio to Austin on mostly the east side of IH-35, the Interstate 35, but a few, near the Devil's Backbone area, and then some in the just east. I'm sorry, just west of New Braunfels, where I just had dinner earlier. Great German restaurant there. I'm going to shameless plug here. Is a good place to eat. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now. I'm just going to plug it. It's called Alpine Haus, Haus, Alpine Haus. If you want good German food, that's where you go. And let me tell you right now, if you're in the Austin area, it's New Braunfels. Good barbecue, go to Thorndale Meat Market. And if you want good fajitas, go to Serrano's. Their chicken fajita is really good. Lupi tortilla for beef fajitas. And if you want good Chinese food, Asian Express. And if you want good Mediterranean food, go to Roman's. And if you want good Italian food, Reali's. Anyway, that out of the way. Those people, I'm friends with all those people, but it's because I met them through their deliciousness of their food. And so they're not paying me to plug them, but I'm just going to plug it. And I also want to break up the fear factor here because people tell me sometimes my show scares the crap out of them. So that's why I make jokes. And sometimes I throw things in there to kind of break it up. So it's a little lighthearted. There's some levity there. And we're not all like, oh my God, aliens and demons are coming out of the earth. But anyway, what you're talking about, the Paramorphosis, this is very, very, very important. I think that you need to write that. And I think that you need to actually show what that is and set some light on it. And I think it's actually very deep. It's very intelligent too on your part to go into that, because there's a lot of that going on that people aren't talking about. You and Jason Bland are just two of the people that I know in this field that are podcasters who've had this Paramorphosis thing happen. My friend Chad, when we were kids, happened to him. He had the Paramorphosis thing where he's like, there's a ghost in my room. There's a ghost in my room. Okay. I think there's something that was making me have sleep paralysis. Then there was these blue aliens.
Right.
And so you're sitting there going like, okay. And then when I talked to him about it, guess what? I had a quote unquote dream about blue aliens, three of them in my room, and they came through the wall and then they moved back out of the wall.
Wow.
Yeah. And so there you go. I mean, I have had encounters with different types of entities, some of which could be probably considered, looking alien, what we think of these quintessential aliens, not necessarily the grays, but just that kind of look to them,
Right. Exactly.
And I've come across them in different arenas, like on the astral plane, you'll see things like that, and I've had experiences with out of body quite a bit. And I even had an experience with somebody astral project into my bedroom when I was a young man. And he was a gangster. I'm not going to lie to you, dude. This guy, and I went to him and I was so angry with him. And this guy was a murder suspect already. This dude that did this to me, he was already being looked at for doing something to somebody. And the fact that he practiced black magic, and my brother was a Satanist at that time, and the fact that this guy practiced black magic, and my brother talked to him, I didn't really talk to him much, and I told him, you tell that guy, don't ever show up in my house again unannounced. And he was in absolute shock that I knew that he was there.
Oh wow!
But there again, here's a weird thing. A couple nights later, after that incident happened, and I don't believe this was him. I think something else kind of led into something else. Like maybe he sent something. But one night years ago, I had this dream. I fell asleep watching TV on my couch in my living room. And I had like a little study right there, and I would just walk out from the study into the living room. And I just was like, you know what? I'm tired. I'd been working on the computer all day, doing a bunch of stuff. So I went and I said, I'm just going to watch a little, DVR baseball or whatever it was. And I started watching the Astros game, and then I fell asleep. Well, I started having this weird, like, buzzing, humming noise above my face going, wow, 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 wow. And it was just like that. And I kept waking up and then going back to sleep because I couldn't fully wake up, but I didn't really want to wake up. See, it was not like the panicky state of sleep paralysis where you're like, oh my gosh, I got to wake up, man. I can't move. But I was just like perfectly comfortable with just trying to go back to sleep. And then I kept waking up. And that was the only time in my life I ever had that weird pulsating, vibrating noise.
Wow.
And I had this feeling that there was some sort of weird entity on either side of my feet, like on either side of the couch. And the feeling I got was that they were something interdimensional. It wasn't. My house that I lived in was haunted. I'm not gonna lie, and it had weird stuff going on. But this was an energy of something weird that I had never ever experienced before. And yeah, and so I wondered, like after that guy had actually come into my bedroom when I saw him, and I was just like, I demanded him leave, and then let him know that I did know that was not a dream, and that I did encounter him out of my body. And I told him, and he knew it too, and he apologized, and yeah, and he actually came to me in a neutral site when I was wandering around in this space I call it the City of Night. And I encountered him there, and I told him he's not welcome to just impede and intrude on my existence. Like, don't come into my space, dude, because I know that you're there. And so when you're on these other planes of existence, you will encounter different entities, and some of them do look like they would be some sort of extraterrestrial. But that begs the question, like, are they? I mean, are extraterrestrials real? Are they demonic? What are they? Are they just a type of entity? Are they from the inner earth? Like, what are they and where are they from? What is their agenda?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it's such a rabbit hole. I mean, everything is. I mean, you can sit here and say, okay, so is it the ultra terrestrial, extraterrestrial, interdimensional? And then, and this is with every single subject, because even with ghosts, like, this was something that was so fascinating to me that I learned within the last year about time slips. How some ghosts that you're actually viewing could actually be a time slip where you're viewing the past or you're viewing the future, and it's not actually a deceased person. So, I mean, it's just fascinating, all of it.
So, Ann, you know what? We've reached our time here. It's time to go. But you know what? We've covered a lot in the last 2 hours that we've done the show, last week and this week. And I hope to have you come on again. And we could, because we left a lot of meat on the bone, as the saying goes.
We did.
There's a lot to talk about. We covered alien abduction, we covered Bigfoot, we covered spirits, things, and shadow people. But there's still, you still have a plethora of different,
yes.
Yeah, encounters.
There's many more experiences, yes.
Yeah. So because you are, like I said, an experiencer, and it's cool you wrote a book about it. And I remember when you wrote the book and you had messaged me how happy you were that you had gotten it done, and I was like, that was awesome achievement. I wish I had the time to do mine. I'm trying to, but I'm going to have to get, I got the people together to do the to talk about their encounters, whatever, and but it's going to be about Dogman. It's my first one anyway. I have plans, maybe write a second or even third one, but I'm just going to see how this first one goes. I've already started doing the outlines of what I'm going to talk about, But I want it to be good though. I don't want it to be just some rushed thing. I got to do it when I'm able to do it. But I'm proud of you, and I'm glad that you. I've watched you blossom into an author. And
thank you
so
you're
much. A podcaster, and I know Steve Stockton is one of your mentors, and he is one of the best podcasters / authors out there. Folks, if you don't know who Steve Stockton is, if you're living under a rock, go check out his channel on YouTube. Just look him up and check out his books. He's written, the first one was just about his personal experience. It's called My Strange World. It's really good. So I'm just giving him a plug there. And we do have a lot of friends, that we Ken Gerhard's another mutual friend of ours, and Ken's got some good work, done some good work, good books. Anybody that is looking to learn more about you, let's plug your show.
Yeah, so the podcast is called The Caravan Library of Lore. You can find that on, just Google that and it'll come up immediately. Same thing for Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Just type in The Caravan of Lore. If you're interested in checking out the radio station, KPNL Radio, it's kpnl-db.com. And then again, just KPNL for Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. My book, again, is Aperture in the Veil, Born in a Preternatural World. You can find it on Amazon. If you would like an author signed copy, you are more than welcome to hit me up on Facebook. I am under Ann Selene.
And I am Josh Turner. And if you are listening to the show, you already know. So tune in again next Friday as we talk about more weird stuff. And don't forget Tuesday live streams. I do a live stream every Tuesday. I have guests on. We talk about weird stuff. I interview people. I tell stories just like I do on the podcast. It just goes longer. And you see my face, which, is in and of itself kind of scary. But anyway, go to the show, the live stream on YouTube. It's about 8 o'clock every Tuesday. Check it out. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Ann, for being my guest. Everyone out there, good night.